Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Weekend Frivolity. This is our Broiler Chicken Show. Bark, 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 bark. Welcome back to the Frivolity. Like I just said a second ago, it looks like we're live on YouTube, so that's good. Yeah, there's a few people over there. Hello, Hans. Nice to see you over on YouTube. And by all means, YouTubers, if you have questions, feel free to ask. I'll try and keep your box on the corner of my eye here. Got a bunch of people in the hangout with me. I can probably show them to you. There they are, sitting there. There I am. Hi, good morning. Sunday morning, so obviously I don't have my makeup on and my hair done up, but nonetheless, good morning, everybody. And you can see we have a bunch of site members in the lounge. So if you see me making reference to people in the lounge, those are those guys, sort of our OGers. And by all means, if you are a member of the site or a member of the school or anything like that, this way, they get sort of a inside beat. And of course, we do this Monday to Friday. With our professional trading team. We've got I got to tell you, man, the traders that we're building here at TRI, I mean, these guys are trading circles around me now, which is great. It's, the whole purpose of what I was supposed to do here was to help this community, help the people that are interested in crypto, that are maybe computer oriented, but have never really been taught the rules of how to sort of manage yourself and manage your money in the marketplace. And the dream's coming to fruition. And as I said just a second ago, some of these guys, they're trading circles around me. Like they understand the concepts. They built the algorithms. We have them up on the site. There's Benjamin in the lounge, Mr. On YouTube there. And Benjamin, if you want to come into the hangout, you're more than welcome. But I know you like it over there on the kids' table. This site's all about 1 + 1 = 3. And it tickles me pink to see how awesome you guys all are doing. Wow, now there is a person I have not seen since I've been climbing mountains in Switzerland, and I am damn pleased to see him again. So hello, sir. I've missed you terribly, and I've been worried sick about you. So it's good to see that you're here, Mr. D. I won't say your name, and I'll refrain from barking at you. I think maybe I was a little too hard on this gentleman a few months ago about him buckling down, and I think I scared him away. Oh, Gravity, dude, where have you been? Oh, Evil Ferris. Nice name, dude. That's awesome. Oh, that's great. All right. Well, Hans asked a really good question. Today should really be about us just reviewing what I've sort of done since my last public broadcast. I know, we didn't do a Broiler Chicken show last weekend because we had to spend the entire weekend working on the interview that I did with Da Vinci. And I got to tell you, man, that was one hell of an interview. We actually had to do the whole damn thing twice with edits and work with, OBS and Hangouts. And oh, my goodness, what a headache. But I think we did really good work there. That interview that we did with Dav got something like 20 or 30,000 views on YouTube. So just an FYI, I know there's some people that were posting on YouTube and stuff. Hey, I signed up for the school and I haven't heard back from you. I mean, we just absolutely got blitzed with new members and new people. Obviously fans of Dav. He really likes my little old lady strategy. And he talks to his community a lot about it. So, it was a really valuable time spent in that interview with Dav. So I think it was well worth the time and effort to put in, but I apologize. We didn't do a Broiler Chicken show last weekend, so we actually have quite a bit of information to cover from the last show that we did. I think I'm probably, like on the site Monday to Friday, and keep in mind, I'm a stock guy. I'm a commodity guy. Yes, I am a cryptocurrency guy, but I trade everything under the sun. So, probably on the Twitter feed, you saw a lot of references to options expiry. I used to be a derivatives broker, so I absolutely love that field of business. And to be perfectly honest with you, through December and stuff, I also was a penny stockbroker for many years, and I learned one model in particular that's very active in the venture capital market into year end because of the tax loss selling pressures and stuff. So most of my buying and most of my activity in the market, probably over the past month or two, has actually been in the stock market. I understand that this community, especially Da Vinci's community, is obviously heavily crypto oriented. I don't want, on a daily basis, we spend lots and lots of time, with our resident analysts, the Bear, going over, currencies, fiat currency movements, commodities, stocks, options, the whole gamut. I don't think I'm going to, just for time purposes, because I don't want to be here all day, I'm not going to really talk too much about stock, but if you do see, as we're going through the Twitter feed, you do see stock references. If you have a specific question about anything that you see, feel free to ask. But I'm not going to go into too much conversation about the stock market right now. But ironically enough, what I actually see happening in crypto actually ties in really well with what I see happening in the stock market right now. So, I've been sort of, and a big part of today's conversation with this sort of public audience is going to be all around what does a final capitulation bottom in the Bitcoin cycle look like? And are we there? Are we getting close? And what should we be thinking as, investors in the marketplace as we go through this sort of final hurrah of the 1819 bear cycle? But I do find it really interesting that we're coming up on a leaps options expiry, which is a really, really big event in the derivatives market, and watching Bitcoin price here behave the way that it is. I think they're actually pretty highly correlated, but I'm not going to get into that too much today. We'll just sort of stick strictly with crypto today. I don't want to be here all day, so we'll probably, maybe limit this to like an hour or something like that. So it's actually a really beautiful day. Hey, Shane, you looking out the window? Do you see the sun shining? It's a miracle. The sun is actually shining in Vancouver. You don't see that every day. So I'm actually I really want to spend a good chunk of my time out with the boy, enjoying this nice weather. So like I said, we'll limit this to maybe about an hour or so, and then and send you people on your way. Okay, so let's get to work. As I said, I actually like to use this weekend broiler chicken show as sort of a way to explain what it is I've been sort of seeing here in Vancouver. That's funny. I just read the Irvin just said, you live in Vancouver, and so Vancouver was on my brain when I said that sentence. That's good. So I apologize, got derailed there. But I do like to spend this broiler chicken show talking a little bit about what I've been ranting about on Twitter. So what we have to do is we actually have to go back. The last time I did one of these broiler chicken show, it's a great day out there, isn't it? I got to get out there and enjoy it. But the last broiler chicken show we did was actually back at the end of the year. Yeah, Rez, it is. It's nice weather, isn't it? So last show that we did was back in December, and what I'll do is I'll just, if I can, just slowly sort of walk through this and explain what I'm thinking to the public. So we kind of left off just before the broiler chicken show with a really interesting potential setup coming in here. We had AB equals CDs. We had a 78.6. You can see the profile was really empty, so we could use some activity down at the lower end of the profile. And we sort of had, multiple reasons to consider taking a risk down in this area down in here. And sure enough, I thought it was fascinating. that they did indeed dump price right into these levels. You can see the dump happening. This potential sort of consolidation failed, coming down into these AB equals CDs. I think it's important to note that, like one thing that I'm really trying to drive home to my user base, but really, everybody should follow the same logic, is that, especially when Bitcoin comes into harmonic levels and it looks like there's a bounce going on, you get these windows where I think, as Bitcoin did hit that harmonic level, we saw quite a few of the little names all start to perk up. And then through that sort of dead cat bounce counter trend rally window, you can't see the chart. You should be able to. I'm showing the Twitter page right here, this flow, and I think I see it on YouTube, so I'm not quite sure what you're looking at. But the point of the matter here is that, and especially for our community, when you're super sharp, you've articulated your trading plan, you're just hunting setups. Get in there and hunt setups, hunt setups, hunt setups. I thought this was a great one. Through that period from the end of December through to the second week of January here, it was great seeing all the people in the lounge banging out doubles right, left, and center. And this is one that paid the community really nicely. And it was just fantastic to see people booking profits. So there always is a bull somewhere. It's just a question of where we find it. All right, so further to our discussion just a moment ago, we were painting these ABCDs, 78.6s, against the original market structure bottom. And, unfortunately, this often is the way that a lot of these harmonic patterns play out, is you got to be damn slick and you got to be ready, willing, and able to pull the trigger at the level. This actually turned out to have 4 different reasons, all trade location related, but we didn't really get too much in the way of market structure. There's no W here. And so I kind of sort of build this as a classic harmonic traders trade. And the harmonic traders, if you're going to take that, they have a very strict rule that you can see this is 38.2 bounce off of that level, that they have to force themselves to take profits, at least partial profits at 38.2 tags. I don't really like to teach people about harmonic trading that are just beginning their education, because this is an extremely high anxiety trade. You have to be a pro at what you're doing and have, watch price coming into here. And ironically enough, the more violent the dump is into the PRZ, potential reversal zone, the better. And, the new person to trading, as they're watching this, they're thinking the sky is falling. So it's extremely difficult for new people to take this trade. But nonetheless, it was there. And as I said just a moment ago, those people that did take that level, you have a strict rule that you need to take partial profits at 38.2 tags. So as we sort of move along, that level was hit, doink. And what was really interesting about this is there was one hell of a fight here, which actually leads me to believe that there was actually quite a few people who traded this, like real professional traders. Because as time went by, it was just a real debate as to whether this 38.2 was going to be, stop the bull. But nonetheless, the harmonic guys got their partial fills. They moved their stop to scratch on the remaining. And, well, you don't know, but one of my old bosses from trading days, he used to always say, traders, you can make unlimited amounts of money, but you have to understand that you are paid to be uncomfortable. And here would be a great example where you have no idea where this market's going to go. You've already booked partial profit, so your account is on the green, and you just move your stop to basically where you entered the trade, and you just be uncomfortable. But let's see where the heck this darn thing goes. So he said 38.2 was actually resolved bullishly. So you can see the fight here. There was a good, this is what is that? It's an hourly chart. So There was 1 hour into that level, then another hour, then another hour. So this is like 3 hours later. And then the market said, nope, I'm a bull, up I go. And of course, the harmonic guys, they're sitting on half of their position. They've already booked partial profits. They got their stop at scratch. And now at this point, maybe they can start using things like market structure to start locking in profits on the remaining position that they have. One could argue too that based on volume profile, there's an old adage that says that if we can accept back into value, that would be sort of this yellow area, then 80% of the time we should go back up and tag value high. And you can also see there's a big old notch here, just very much like this notch was open. There's a big old hole in the profile here. So odds are the market was going to head up into there anyway. And, like I said, volume profile people, they're probably going to be looking for this 88.6 kind of stuff, up against these highs. And a tag of value high to exit their long positions. But nonetheless, you can see how that harmonic trade just worked its way out. And this, this is the professional trader's trade. It's damn difficult. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is really, really difficult stuff. But nonetheless, hopefully you can understand the logic here as I'm sort of walking through this. Okay, did I open that on a new window? I must have. Okay, yeah, so little bit shocked. This is more political commentary. You don't often hear sort of, market prognosticators and stuff actually outright come out and say that they don't expect the president of the United States to make it to the end of the year. That really surprised me. Your personal thoughts about Mr. Trump, that's a total side, that's politics. Some people like, some people dislike. But to actually hear these market pundits come out and say they don't think he's going to make it to the end of the year, that surprised me. A little bit more sort of broader economy talk. There's an old adage in the market that just simply says that copper goes into almost everything that our society produces. If you think of houses and copper, do we still use copper pipes? I don't think so. That's old technology, eh? But copper wiring and electrical systems, obviously cars, big home appliances, they use lots of copper. So there's an old adage in the market that just simply says, as copper goes, that's basically the direction of the economy. And it's not a good sign when you see big M's and things like copper. You could make the argument that this was basically Mr. Trump's election win. And of course, it makes sense because, in essence, Mr. Trump is pro-business, pro-growth. He talked about, growing GDP like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 100%, whatever. And so it made sense that the copper market did well. And what was really cool about this event was this actually set up a really cool trade. I don't know if there was a TRISOF, but it was a fantastic technical trade because copper had come down and just was collapsing, and it started to build some cases for the long side. You never know how these things develop, but hopefully everybody sees the nice W here on that election event. And sure enough, up go copper prices. So, for the past year or two, market's been feeling pretty bullish. The economy's been expanding, yada, yada, yada. And then we came into sort of the latter part of 2018, and the wheels started falling off the bus. So bit of a side commentary, not really crypto, but it's interesting, and it's if you're watching on YouTube and you're like, I want to get some value out of this broadcast, and I want to learn something, because I'm here to try and learn as much as possible. Well, if you didn't know this before, they call copper the professor of economics. And I just put out tweets saying, this isn't a good sign. Whenever we see M's in these big industrial commodities like this, that generally means that there's something wrong internally in the system. And, we've seen what happened in the stock market through the Christmas break. So I think that makes sense as well. Interestingly enough, we're actually coming back down into buying zones against these original double bottoms, reload zones, all that kind of fun talk. If this thing A, B, C, Ds, it looks like it wants to project somewhere down into here. So, I might consider actually copper on the long side if we can get down to sort of this, 2 to 2.25 sort of zone. I'll keep that out on the radar screen going forward. Here's yet another example of an altcoin, and this happens to be Loom. I don't really know the fundamental story, but Da Vinci was telling his community how much he loves the little old lady strategy. Here's a really good example where, maybe I throw like $1 into this trade idea. Sitting at, what is that? Can't even see. Looks like it says 13 sats, right? This is a Loom Network versus Bitcoin. I think I have that price right, but I might be mistaken. And excuse me. Just looking at this chart, and this is sort of the reason why we do this, is it realistic for me to be able to double my money on a name like this going forward? And, technically speaking, we could draw 50% rules going all the way back up top. There's an old, all right, take it easy, Zach. There's an old rule in the market that says wicks and tails like to be eaten. So if I get any kind of pop up into these levels here, I can easily sell half on a double. Is that 1,300 sats? Thanks, JD. I don't know whether I have my screen set up here or not correctly. Is it realistic to look for a double in this asset? And in essence, the rule is sell half on a double, get your original capital back in your hands, and then just rinse and repeat, and then take that original capital and go buy something else. This is, I think, would be a perfect example of a nice little nanny nibbles, little old lady purchase. Take a really small portion of your portfolio. I think Dav was even saying in our interview, he likes to go at like 0.25% of his portfolio just to start establishing positions. Then if this thing does go like parabolic, you might actually find that turns into a fairly substantial part of your portfolio. I do like the idea of trying to get into a risk-free trade as fast as possible. Because risking your money, your hard-earned money in the marketplace, it's quite an anxiety process. It's not fun. It's stressful. So if you can get into a position where you sell half on a double, and then technically that means you got all your original invested money back in your hands, and you can just go and, basically the rest of the position is quote unquote risk-free, then that puts you in an incredibly powerful position. Yeah, it goes off the board. Oh, well, shit happens. It wasn't my money to begin with. It was the market's money. And then, of course, if the thing goes parabolic, well, cha-ching. And the great part about crypto is it's so insanely volatile. I thought it was really interesting. Unfortunately, in this space, a lot of people get really wrapped up in, okay, I'm going to like double my money next week, or I'm going to, 10x, 100x, within a month. I'm driving my Lambo. And Dav and I in the interview were even joking about how, in Wall Street terms, you actually start every single conversation off with, this has a 3 to 5 year time horizon. And everybody in crypto goes, 3 to 5 years? Geez, I haven't even been out of high school that long. Remember, Brian's an old man. 3 to 5 years for Brian, that's peanuts. So, the irony of it all is going and nibbling away on names like this with the idea that, and I even made reference in that video with Dav. Goldman Sachs came out in 2013 and did a research article. Nobody talks about it now, which surprises the hell out of me. But basically went to their clients and recommended, they did a research report to buy Bitcoin at $1,100 right into that Mt. Gox event. Of course, the price came back down to $150. Oh, boo-hoo-hoo. In the short term, they were obviously quite mistaken. But because they put that 3 to 5 year time horizon caveat into every recommendation that they made, ironically enough, if clients just followed that within 3 to 5 years, they got like 20x off of that. Well, I guess not 20. 10 times their money, whatever. They'd be happy with that. So, if you can be patient and just ride out at some point Bitcoin will bottom, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But if you can just ride that out and just start accumulating positions as these things are bumping along the bottoms ends of their ranges, I think that's just fantastic. But to be able to do that and do it consistently and articulately, like we see in our lounge every single day, our OGs are like, ooh, this one looks very nibble worthy. This one looks very nibble worthy. It means you have to come and you have to have your plan and you have to articulate exactly how much you're working with, what the percentages are, nanny nibbles, very, 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 very small bets. And just slow and steady wins the race. You're running a small business of trading, not just, I got $1,000 to blow. Let's go and throw it on red 9. And if I hit, great. And if I don't, back to the car wash. All right, so moving right along, there's another little name to consider. As I sort of said, I was even stunned at how powerful this harmonic trade worked out. I mean, just beautiful trade. And as you can see, we basically rallied up. There's another thing, freebies. I'm going to just go through my spiel here, Brian, and then I'll go back, and if I have time, I'll review some ideas. But Brian, he loves to talk. So I'll try and scroll up through the requests. I know there was a couple people ahead of you there, Brian, that asked me to look at some things. So we'll take a look at that once I'm done my spiel here. All right, so bottom line here, there was that harmonic trade entry. There was the, in fact, actually, I've even taken it on here. The 38.2 move stop to take partial profits, right? There was that battle. You had no idea whether this thing was going to crap back out. So harmonic traders take partial profits. And now they're just moving their stops up below market structure and locking in profits on the rest. And if this thing starts emming out and breaking down, well, then they'll just hop off the rest of the trade. If this thing is a rip-roaring bull and we blast off through these highs, well, they've got their positions locked in from here, and they're laughing. Keep moving forward. It was interesting, obviously through that Christmas break, things got a little bit chaotic in the marketplace. Political machine, lots of sort of, jostling for control. There was also the big change in the U.S. government structure. In essence, the U.S. government went from entirely being controlled by one political party, which is dangerous in itself. There's a bit of a balance now in the U.S. political system, and you can even see now the executive branch is trying different ways to get their policies put through, and they're just running into a brick wall with Congress. It is interesting, in simplest terms, business will expand, business will be happy when they believe that the political situation is relatively stable. I might argue that the writing was on the wall that the political situation was very unstable in the United States. A lot of business leaders stopped spending money. They stopped plans. And you can see the surveys. There's lots and lots of anecdotal evidence around, trade wars. I repeatedly tweeted out, trade wars never end well. I've been at this game for 30 years. I've never seen a trade war go well. And in essence, this is basically doing exactly the same thing as every other trade war. So it really shouldn't have surprised us to see that money is fleeing out of risk assets and it's fleeing into things like government guaranteed securities. So the JGBs, which is basically the Japanese government bonds, they seem to be the poop that smells the least in this environment. But I also noticed, so they dramatically outperformed here, and I think that the JGBs are going much, much, much higher. But that's a conversation for another day. The point here is just that we can really see the capital fleeing out of the stock market and into things like government bonds. 10-year anniversary, and interesting to see things like BitMEX. Arthur is swimming in profits. He's doing crazy things like taking front page advertisements out on the New York Times. That's what you do when you're swimming in money, is you got to figure out ways to spend it. Again, I had asked in this document, this tweet, and in the copper tweet about the seriousness of the economy rolling over. And I just asked, are other people's paying attention? And it turns out that, from things like Reuters and stuff like that, that people are starting to pay attention to this yen trade. All right. We actually, through this Christmas break, also put out a really cool marketing piece for TRI. And it was great to see that our OGs, and Sen is one of our OGs. He actually wrote a really cool script on TRI that basically tells our community when the Davos signals. You remember in that interview I had with Da Vinci, we talked a little bit about how he came up with a setup that really spoke to him. It's just purely a price momentum and volume momentum setup. And this gentleman, San, he actually algoritmized it, and through our site programmer, Sjord, we actually have the signals generated on the site on a daily basis. So thanks for the shout out, but this is a really great piece that we put together, because this isn't, ironically enough, and this is one thing I absolutely love about what I do. You don't want to hear a sales pitch from Brian. I can sit here and go, oh, I'm so great. TRI is so great. Right? But that's bullshit. I mean, that's just a salesman doing a sales pitch. What I would rather, especially you people on YouTube and stuff, I would rather you hear from the actual community members themselves. And so I actually took a trip to Europe to meet a lot of the TRI site members. And I did a bunch of interviews while I was on the road. It's too bad I can't pause that without that stupid thing being there. But and there, right there, you know who that is? Oh, that is the Burgermeister. God, I love Burgermeister, and I don't see him on the site that much. He pops in every now and then, but I absolutely like all of these guys. There's the Burgermeister. Here was Frank, and actually Frank's now a personal life coach, which is so cool. And he's with another gentleman out of Belgium, Sonny.
Я, короче, тебе потом позвоню, сейчас не могу.
Well, there you go. Ilja, if you could kindly put yourself on mute, I would appreciate it. And if he can't, can somebody help him? Thank you, Shane. Appreciate it. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that, if you really want to learn about TRI and what we do here, don't listen to Brian's sales pitches. Listen to our community members. Listen to the actual students in the courses. And I was so proud of the job that we put together. It sucks because we lost like half the interviews that I did. Ay, caramba. Yeah, well, Mr. Evil Ferris, I want to, just like I did with Dav, remember I reached out to all you OGers and asked you if you guys would be interested in doing interviews too. So, Tim, I would really like to hook up with you because I think you'd have some awesome stories to tell. All right, so the point of the matter here is, shameless plug, sure, but we put out this testimonial video. It's a very quick one here, but it gives you a really unbiased view of the program and what we do at TRI from the student's perspective. Not me. I'm not doing any sales pitches here. Just listen to what they have to say, because that's the real value of this site. It's the students and the difference I'm trying to make. All right, cute little comments. I think at some point, Brian and my co-host, who was one of my original OGers, he was actually in class there with Evil Ferris. I think at some point, and I talked earlier about some of our in-house analysts who now actually become better traders than I have, which is awesome. I love that. But the Beamish and the Bear, at some point, we're probably going to go and take this show public, because at some point I think the public will be ready for this, and when they are, holy moly, we're going to knock them on their butts. All right, talking a little bit about the stock market. One thing that we follow in the stock market, especially, I've been doing this forever, is what's called the January barometer. So I'm watching the January barometer very closely here, and I talk about it on the site quite a bit. Some more sort of rhetoric. All right, so back to our Bitcoin story. What I kind of noticed here, what I'm seeing, remember there's our harmonic trade down in there, I think, but I don't know whether this is the same chart or not. It might be a different one. This is actually OK Coin now, but what I kind of noticed through, the post Christmas break was, a very rangy market. And we'll talk a little bit about how that resolved, but it looked to me like we were playing just mountain man ping pong. Again, I want to take some information out of this presentation that Brian's giving here today. So, quit wasting my time, Brian. If you want a really, really good level that's respected in the market a lot, it's this 61.8 Fibonacci retracement. So here you can see in this particular case, market tagged it and then reversed and then rallied up into this 61.8 and fell off. And so I just made the comment, it sure looked to me like we are just basically in a mountain man ping pong match here, which often happens in the market because this is the hallmark of ranging markets. And markets range 80% of the time. All right, so moving forward, we talked a little bit about potential resolution of this sort of bouncing market, back and forth, 61.8 tags, back and forth. And it sure felt like we were building to some sort of crescendo here. That's that consolidation, ranging markets we talked about. And what I found interesting about this was that you could make the argument this is the bullish setup, A, B, C, D, and the teal, which had it worked, it would have resolved itself up to about 4,800. And then you could also, at the same time, make the bearish argument, A, B, C, D, which would take us down into this 3,400. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. We know what happened. Looks like 3,400 or one. But at this point, really the question was, were you a bull? Were you a bear? And step right up and place your bets. I think that's exactly what I said. Right? Step right up and place your bets. I mean, you just don't know which way this thing's going to break. That's why we trade setups, right? So, at this point, what I noticed was the whole market was sort of building towards some sort of crescendo here. Again, altcoins, great analogy of little old lady. And I'll try and sort of answer some of your questions, because I know somebody right up at the beginning of the broadcast said, when you cash out with little old lady, do you cash out into USD or do you stay in Bitcoin? Hans, primarily, like on something like this, crypto.com versus Bitcoin, well, the trade is basically this altcoin versus Bitcoin. So if this thing doubles and it produces a double, it would pay me back in Bitcoins because I entered in Bitcoins. There are lots of charts that I've been posting recently, and I've been sort of suggesting to the world that while Bitcoin is trying to find its bottom, it's not a bad idea to pull up your idea and compare it to US dollars. And if you have, I don't know whether you want to play the tether game. I played the tether game for a while. I got sick of that nonsense. Long and short of it here, there's no such thing as a quote unquote stable coin in this space. They are all volatile. On Trex right now, I have a huge US dollar position. And frankly speaking, I'd rather just stay in US dollars and not get sucked into this crazy stable coin conversation, because I haven't seen a quote unquote stable coin. They're all over the place. And, the one time when you see a stable coin and you're like, okay, yeah, I can believe that they believe that they're a stable coin, that's going to be your new bits. And oh, crap, what a mess. So I would make the argument that, while Bitcoin is weak, maybe it's a good idea for you to look at your ideas versus USD. I know that, like sites like TradingView and Trex, I think because they want to report to IRS, they have a US dollar equivalent chart on almost all of their, you can see calculated by TradingView here. Almost all of these Trex coins will have a sort of US dollar equivalent. And I would make the argument, until we actually see a bottom in Bitcoin, that, sort of as sort of your last criteria, okay, do I really want to go in and put my money to work in this? Maybe pull up the chart versus USD and see whether there's a bottom working there. I think that through the last cycle, we raised a whole bunch of US dollars and sold Bitcoin at the top. And we didn't sell all. I mean, I will fully acknowledge that, my whole goal was to take $500 and turn it into 100 G. So I did that. Got maybe about 150 grand, somewhere in that neighborhood, sitting in cash and cash equivalents. And right now, I still have a whack of Bitcoin on the books, and I'm doing a lot of recycling and actually putting that Bitcoin back to work in a lot of these names. I'm not really selling any Bitcoin into cash right now. I think that window is gone. And if anything, on these doubles that I'm banging out now, I would prefer to actually start building up my Bitcoin balance, because I really do think that we're a lot closer to the bottom on Bitcoin than the top. But I don't think that the quote unquote bottom is actually in. So if anything, now over the next year or two, I would be in sort of the accumulating Bitcoin sort of phase. I'm not quite ready to go and throw the cash that we have back into Bitcoin. I would like to see a bottom, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. All right, so sort of moving right along, the stage was set. Were we going to break bull? Were we going to break bear? A lot of people were placing their bets, and that's fine. I mean, everybody's entitled to an opinion. The issue here is, if you are a bull and it breaks down, have you identified risk? If you're going to do little old lady, well, the whole point of little old lady was she doesn't want me calling her. She doesn't want me bugging her. So we better make the bet small enough that if the trade idea doesn't work, she's not going to get all pissed off, right? She just has her money working in the market. On setups like this, where you have sort of entries and then appropriate stops, this is what I call the bot setup, and you're trading on leverage or whatever, then you have no choice. You have to get out if these levels are breached. So, that's really a function of your trading plan, what type of risk taker you are, how you actually approach this. But the long and short of it here is, we came into a consolidation and she could have broken either way. You just didn't know. But you have to, of course, act appropriately to how your trading plan is set up and what type of risk taker you are. All right, we talked a little bit about little old ladies. And I think, I even mentioned this coin on the Da Vinci interview. I think they're setting themselves up for big things down the road. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but I have no problem with little old ladies going and nibbling off of names like this. Okay, so as we talked about a moment ago, it turns out that in this particular case, the bullish setups fired. You can see this is my bot entry level, and there is the upside target. This is on stamp. Now, what this means, though, as you can see, there's a 50% level and 66 and 100%. Remember, we had that last image. If we had broken down here, then the bear would be in control. In this particular case, the bull was in control. But it's really important, if you're going to trade this setup, that if we hit this 50% of the anticipated move, you move your stop to scratch, so that if the market pukes, you walk away unscathed, which is, again, a function of your trading plan and a function of how well you can follow your plan. So the bullish setups fired and things were rocking and rolling. What was really interesting I found about this, and it was, I don't know whether it was a coincidence or whether it was, just dumb luck. I don't know. But as soon as Bitcoin broke out here, and it was really interesting to watch like the actual pace of trading here across all the exchanges. Like literally, I think that Bitcoin just swallowed up whatever bandwidth was available on the internet. Like Mex was just going absolutely insane. They were freezing up. They were this is when Dav and I were doing the interview. So this is basically 1 week ago. Gmail wasn't working. Rocket Chat crashed on our site, and it just felt like, holy crap, the whole damn internet just exploded there when Bitcoin broke out, which is kind of interesting unto itself. I don't know whether Bitcoin is at the point where it can actually do that or not, but I found the coincidence shocking. Comments about our crazy rocket chat. And if anything, I absolutely love working with this guy, Sjord. He's, one of the principals at TRI. He's basically our chief technology officer. And man, he is quick as lightning, and he got on top of this and fixed it very quickly. Thank you so much, Sjord. And everybody at TRI should give a big kiss to Sjord because, man, he just does yeoman's work. All right, so here was the Dav interview that we did. Had lots of fun talking to him. I gotta say, I mean, I don't know what's going on with Dav, but he has got one hell of a following. And when we did this interview, TRI just exploded. I can't believe how many people have come on the site asking about our education programs, asking about site memberships. We even created a free trial system that was really put to the test following this event. So, big shout out to Da Vinci. Watch the interview if you haven't watched it already. I really like Dav's down-to-earth nature. It's interesting how Dav basically says he doesn't expect Bitcoin to moon for at least a few years. So, I don't know whether I'm as bearish as Dav, but I think we did some really good basic chart analysis near the end of the interview. And I think that, I'd say the same principles today. We want to hunt for weekly W's for us to know that a bottom is in. And until that happens, the bottom is not in. And what I find sad about investing is that people will sort of mentally come up with, all right, I think that Bitcoin will bottom at $3,000. And sadly, that's just your opinion. And, quite often the market will actually go much further. Nobody expected 20,000 on the upside. I can tell you that absolutely for certain on that last rally. At TRI, we were sort of kicking around the idea 5,000, 10,000, some insane blow off top. I can tell you right now, not a single person that I was interacting with called 20,000 as a top. So a really good example, and what I often say is, number one, Bitcoin really can't finish a move either up or down without some sort of horrendous blow off top or bottom. It's just the way Bitcoin works. And 20,000 peak there, I think, was a perfect example where nobody was looking for that insane number. Anyway, the point of the matter here is this is, I guess, basically 1 week ago. Spent a lot of time working on this interview. I think we pulled it off. I think it went pretty well. And I think we gave you some really good ideas to chew on coming out of that. I gave you 4 names that I think I've got a pretty good shot of doing well going forward, 3 to 5 year time horizon. And I think I even said that to somebody. The market might do absolutely nothing for the next 4 years. As long as the market rallies in year 5, I'm golden. But anyway, really fun interview we did with Dav. Then, of course, there's that testimonials video. Don't listen to Brian. Listen to the site members. Listen to the students. And in essence, that is what I think is the best sales pitch here by far. As I said a few minutes ago, doing a lot of business in the broader market. Pot stocks right now are really hot on the site. That's ironically enough where I've been spending most of my attention over the past week or two. Here was a great example of a derivatives trade in Alcoa, of all things, and this silly stock just keeps marching higher here. I honestly think that there's a lot of market manipulation going on in the stock market right now because we're coming up to a very important derivatives expiration events coming up here. Some PMA kind of thoughts. There was that tout about RLC is just one of the names I think can do pretty well. More political commentary out of Brian. I thought it was really interesting, and this is great information you should be able to take away from this. Remember, we talked a little bit about those higher time frame bullish bot setups we're starting to fire, and notice we came up and we kissed this 50% level off of the bullish bot setups, and especially on things like OKCoin and MEX and stuff like that. Basically, the market told you if you traded this bot setup the market told you that, hey, if you were long and you were thinking long, at the very least, you should move your stop to scratch now. And if this thing craps out, that you just walk away unscathed. And that's the one main reason why I really like using the bot trading system, is that more often than not, you get yourself into a position where worst case scenario, you just walk away from the trade unscathed. The comment I made on the Twitter feed was just simply dojis represent indecision. And hopefully everybody can see that the market was pressing higher, was pressing into these highs. I personally love candle body highs, right? Like this close and then that open right there, this close and that open there for short trade location. And what's really interesting, we'll see in a bit, is that if you do a fib from this low back up to this high, this just so happens to be a reload short zone. So candle body highs, wicks and tails like to be eaten. That happened. And then all of a sudden in come a whole bunch of doji candles. Doji basically means indecision, or basically the market was conflicted right here. And you'll find, if you go back and look, you can see, where did the market stop going down? Well, you notice it was going down, going down, going down, and then doji. I don't know whether we want to go down anymore. Market reversed and then headed up. So it's in our best interest to keep an eye out for these doji bars, because they often represent pivots. So I put this tweet out saying, you know what, guys? Either we consolidate here, and this is another A, B, C, D, and this becomes a midpoint pivot, which is perfectly logical. Or kind of like these dojis down here, this was a high. The market just has run into resistance, too many sellers, top of value. We talked about Hoag's value trade there, right? And it's just exhausted and we're done. So really important, like the message from this tweet was, doji implies indecision. Yeah, I reckon there's quite a bit of indecision out there. Now, the problem with me is that I am all about TA. I have 4 different fundamental analysis models I use for stock investing. I'm all about trading plans. I'm all about trading setups and building setups. I'm all about risk management. I'll never bill myself as a quote unquote crypto fundamental analyst. But I did like hearing this kind of talk coming out of people that, we're actually at the point now where you can actually start making fundamental case that we're near a bottom. And I thought this was an interesting read. Unfortunately, fundamentals don't have to follow technicals. If there's just a whole bunch of motivated sellers, it doesn't matter how great the fundamental story is. Price action always dictates. And this is why TA is so important, because I've seen in my career lots of times where people are like, this fundamental story is awesome, it's trading below value, and yet the asset just doesn't do anything. Why? Well, because the price chart looks like shit. So, go figure. Anyway, I do like, and this is what I want to be hearing for me to know that there's a bottom in the market, is I want to start hearing stories about fundamental value. So I kind of liked seeing this kind of stuff. Following that, of course, we've got the decisions were made. It turns out these dojis failed. And as we talked about just a moment ago, because move stop to scratch levels were hit here, on the failure here, the bot longers, anybody who took a bot long setup here, they were told just to basically exit at scratch. And frankly speaking, I think that was the right idea. Yeah, you took the shot on the long side. It didn't work. Walk away. There's an old adage in the market. I think it comes from The Art of War, Sun Tzu. He who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. So in this particular case, the bull exhausted itself on the dojis, and I think anybody who was playing the market long, they were best just to hop off and sit on the sidelines. And then the sons of bitches came out again, fuckers. I'm going to get into trouble on YouTube. Better put adult content. The easiest way to kill a Bitcoin rally I find over the past year is for these jerks to come out and say buy Bitcoin. As soon as they do this, the goddamn market rolls over. I would almost appreciate if we could create like a societal request that these guys just stop making recommendations, because more often than not, it almost feels as though these messages are being manufactured to break Bitcoin enthusiasts' hearts. It really bugs me. They're so wrong that there is no friggin' way they would ever be funded at a prop trading firm. I mean, they're that bad. Why on earth are they disseminating these trade ideas to the broader public? I actually think that there is sort of an evil conspiratorial plot here to really undermine the public's confidence in this Bitcoin story. I really believe that. And sure enough, these sons of bitches did it again. Ugh. And what really irks me is, we just talked, keep the date of this in reference, right? January 8th. We just talked about how bullish setups actually had their, we had dojis, and up here, they come out with the recommendation to buy Bitcoin. What the hell? We know that this is a reload short zone. We know wicks and tails like to eat, and we know that this is the top of value. What on earth are they doing recommending to the public to be buyers up here? This is nuts. I don't get it. I mean, and, this is just horrible trade location. And, I don't know what it is about them. Like, again, when I look at this as sort of an industry veteran, I go, what on earth are these people doing? It baffles me. It actually makes me feel like they are purposely trying to derail this thing. Really, really bugs me. So, long and short of it here, you see that if CNBC comes out and do one thing, odds are you should probably do the exact opposite. And sure enough, boom. In fact, shortly thereafter, right, this was January 9th, I put this out. Boom, down we go. You can see the dojis, the bot entry guys, they should have been stopped at scratch. And here we are falling apart. Now, I've been talking to the public about this chart for a while, and nobody likes it when I talk about this chart. I don't know what it is. That's not a bad idea, Reza. And I bet you, so Reza says, why don't we go and register the contrariancnbc.com and make it an actual, it's available? Reza's already found out. And we should actually, just for fun, like throw like 0.1 BTC into it and just run a trading model where we take exactly the opposite trade of what they tell us to take, just to see what happens. That would be hilarious. And I bet you it gets like 1 million followers. That's not a bad idea, Reza. And you've got the balls, dude, to pull it off. That would be cool. I'm Mr. PMA. I'm Mr. Got a positive spin. Let's all try and work together. So I don't think it would be a good idea for me to do it, but I could totally see you do it. That would be funny. Good thinking, dude. I like how quick on your feet you are. Okay, so the point of the matter here is market fell out of bed. And really on this fall out of bed, I think if anything, Bitcoin bulls, they absolutely have to cool their jets. Now we had, move stop to scratch levels. So by all means, you should have, at the worst, had you played this long, just walked away at scratch. And what we have to worry about now is, are there bearish setups getting us ready for this sort of anniversary event into January 14th? Again, I mentioned this before. I think in this kind of environment, if you are interested in investing in crypto, then maybe we just leave Bitcoin alone. Just let it do its thing. And if you are interested in investing your money, go and look at your ideas versus US dollar. Right? Thank you, Kevin. Chicken shoe. So here is an example. This is PART in US dollars. I mean, you guys have heard me squawk at length, and if you're watching on YouTube for the first time, you've never seen this before, I am a big fan of the W's, and hopefully everybody can see the W's that came in here and the very violent pop. Now notice the W's fired off of about $2.30. And notice where the pop went to. It went above $5. Here is a perfect example where you could have bought the W and gotten a sell half on a double off. In essence, get yourself a risk-free trade, and now you have this in your portfolio. It doesn't cost you a penny to hold this thing for the rest of your life. That is the way of playing this game from a position of strength. And this is what I really need to drive home to people. We're in this kind of environment right now. It's interesting, you know, some people are, I'm interested in some of the plot coins right now. They all are acting kind of like this right in here. So, and I noticed, I was posting in the lounge this morning, you look at a coin like THC, it's got basically the exact same pattern working. And I could very easily see THC spit out free positions for people. I'm not talking Lambos. I'm not talking about the market moving up here. I definitely believe that once this sort of market is cleaned up and, you know, Bitcoin is based and the sentiment in the space is happy again, wicks and tails like to be eaten, there is a lot of money to be made down the road. But get yourself into that risk-free trade as fast as possible. And then whatever happens to this thing down the road, it's just gravy. Really, really good example that there is money to be made and there are free positions to be had in this market. You just have to be hunting, focus. What are my reasons for taking the trade? You know, like I said, I think it's in your best interest while Bitcoin's trying to find its bottom that you hunt your ideas versus USD. And as you can see here, the W's paid off nicely. Again, more sort of conversation about the sort of macro picture and what I see going on macroly. I honestly believe that the Fed is trying to sort of clean up their balance sheet after they sort of came to the market's rescue there in 2008, 2009, 2010, which sort of created the whole need for Bitcoin and crypto to begin with. How this ultimately plays out, I don't know, but you can actually see that the Fed is in the process of trying to unwind this insane balance sheet situation that they have right now. This is probably going to take a good 10, 15 years to play out. There's no hurry here. Just really, really interesting conversation about macroeconomics. Was interesting. This caught my attention sort of midweek that somebody had reported these whale calls, whale alerts. I have no idea who these people are, that there was a massive position move out of Trex. Turns out that Trex was just cleaning up their back office. And so this tweet's basically like, on first blush, holy shit, what's going on? Oh, and you actually read into it. It turns out it was, you know, just cleaning up cold storage wallets and stuff like that. So it was a big phew. This guy I highly respect within the mining space. I tell you guys the stories about how I bought Verge on a technical breakout at 2 sats. He was in there mining Verge at 2 sats. So miner's perspective, and you can see how many followers he has. Very, very smart gentleman. And he actually CC'd me on one of his tweets. And so I was like, you know, thanks for the shout out. And just a really interesting conversation about the fundamentals behind the mining industry. We were sort of talking on the Broiler Chicken show. There are sites that just sort of spit out how much does it cost to actually try and do a 51% attack on these networks. But he was kind of like, I don't know whether you really should believe these metrics that they have, but really great stuff. And, you know, if nothing else, I think it's in everybody's interest who's watching this this video to give Mr. Not So Fast a follow. Very, very smart gentleman in this space. And remember I said earlier, I don't bill myself as a crypto expert. Frankly speaking, that would be idiotic of me to do so. I like trading. I like setups. I like TA. I like money management. I like, personal growth, how to manage anxiety, blah, 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 blah. That's my strength. I would actually prefer to listen to these kind of people. And we have a whole bunch of them on the site that these guys are just brilliant. And I would rather listen to them when it comes to actual like fundamental trying to find value in this space. And I think also too, sort of a conversation a bit about Dav and ours interview. Dav on his site, he also has sort of a fundamental screener that he likes to use. I would highly suggest that you all check that out. And of course, we have Dav's fundamental screeners from when he was a student on TRI that he likes to use. It's interesting to watch as time goes by and the market caps expand and contract, how the sort of fundamental metrics change. But really, the point that I'm trying to make is that I'm as much of a student of the market as you guys are. And whether it be Dav or whether it be like guys like Not So Fast, I would strongly suggest just listening to these people. Another example of W's in the marketplace, this happens to be Gold Coin. Hopefully everybody can see the cute little consolidation that came in here. And I know for certain in the lounge, a bunch of site members were banging out doubles on this rally. Again, get yourself into a risk-free trade. The setups are there. You can't come to me and say, Brian, there's just no W's out there. That's bullshit. It's just you have to be sharp. You have to be on task. You have to have your plan fully vetted. And when this stuff comes in, you've got to pull the trigger. And then, of course, make damn sure you have those sell half on double orders working. Get yourself into that risk-free trade as fast as possible. Little bit of commentary. I find this actually really interesting. There was those shows like Shark Tank, with that little bald Canadian guy who just has those evil, beady little eyes. I really dislike that part about our society. So if you're reading my rants and my tweets about this, I was actually quite encouraged to see that there's a good portion of our population that's moving away from this sort of VC sort of thinking. And I was just like, hurrah, hurrah. I actually watched when I was a kid my old man get screwed out of a really, really good idea that he invented, that because of the venture capital guys. And so I strongly suggest, and this is all about TRI. Julian and I just started out this thing with absolutely no capital whatsoever. We had a whole bunch of people that came to us and said, Brian, can you teach us how to build trading plans and trade setups and blah, 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 manage risk. Manage my anxiety. We played from a position of strength from day one. And I'm very proud to say that we own 100% of this company. No venture capital. There's no dickhead sitting over us saying, do this, do that, do this, do that. We're just here bringing the PMA on a daily basis. Maybe that means that our site grows slowly. Maybe it means that we have to wait a while before we drive the Lambos. I don't care. What I care is that we do this whole project from a position of strength and PMA. We're doing this project for a good reason. And we're affecting that change that my wife came to me and asked me to do from the other side. And I believe that Spirit is very happy with the work that we're doing here. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we've done as well as we have here at TRI. We don't have any albatross sort of overhanging us, telling us, oh, you got to drive profits. You got to squeeze these people. You got to market and all that. No, I don't believe in that shit. I mean, I find it fascinating that recently some guy came on the site and was trying to grind us because $1,000 to learn how to be a fucking professional trader was too much money for him. And I was like, you want to go out and price these products comparison to my peers that worked at the prop firms? And they're in like the $5,000 to $10,000 range. And, I actually, even at this current price, believe that we're giving this shit away. Now, obviously, if you're starting out and you're like, gee whiz, Brian, $1,000, that's a lot of money. Well, please, and also remember too, $1,000 5 years ago is not the same as $1,000 today. I mean, imagine the amount of money that $1,000 represents these days is not that much. But anyway, I don't want to get into that. The point here is the reason why I was ranting about VC is, if you are working on a project yourself, try not to go down the VC road because they will suck your soul dry. And like I had the privilege of hanging out with a couple really, really smart young guys in LA. They were telling me the story about some VC guy was trying to come in and totally swindle their company away from them. And I was just like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. If you have to slow down, if you have to eat, ramen to pay, make sure that the rent's paid and the bills are paid, you got to go pump gas or something while you get your idea up and running, do it. But don't fucking give your ideas away to the VC people because they will just eat you alive. All right, so moving right along here. Again, more commentary about this options expiry. This is a leaps options expiry coming up, which means that there's a lot of open interest in these leaps. I'm not going to get into this conversation here, but in essence, on our site, we talked lots and lots and lots about this event. And I actually think it's on the 18th of January. Basically, the third Friday of every month is the big options expiry. And frankly speaking, to see a Bitcoin sort of capitulation bottom come into this event, I think they're artificially ramping the stock market up into this event window. I mean, how do you explain this insane rally here? This doesn't make any sense at all. Is Netflix so much better of a company all of a sudden from 2 or 3 weeks ago? Not really. Is the fundamental situation changed? Not really. So how the hell do you explain this? And the only way that you can realistically explain it is that there is a vested interest by Wall Street to get the price of this asset above these big chunky put option open interests. If they can close the stock out at anything above $320 a share on the 18th, which is coming up here pretty quickly, then all of this money, all of these options that they wrote, and these, we did the math on the site. This is like tens of millions, if not, cumulatively hundreds of millions of dollars in premiums that will just basically expire completely worthless. So is there incentive for them to get the stock up? You absolutely bet your bottom dollar there is. And that explains a lot of this crazy straight up rally here. And also too, I had a couple people on the site were aggressive on the short side and putting on new shorts. And I just said, let this event get out of the way. My hunch is the market will top out in reload zones, right where the street is long or short the stock. This is what we call the POC. And then you'll get your short trade after a Wall Street goes cha-ching and pockets all this money. Once that event has happened, Wall Street couldn't give a flying fuck whether this thing collapses or not. But ahead of that event, they have a massive incentive to get the stock up. Really, really good. And we went through on the site through our daily brief. We probably went through at least a dozen of these different stocks. Well, maybe a half a dozen. There's so many of them. It's almost cliche how brutal this is. And, like I said, some of our shark veteran traders are actually taking long trades into this event, knowing that prices, this is what you'd almost like to call like a rise only market. I don't know whether you guys remember in crypto, Alex Stirk used to love using that term. This is a rise only market. Well, right now, I would make the argument this is a rise only market into that 18th event. All right, now we're coming up into more recent tweets about Bitcoin and stuff. I had been talking quite a bit about would this cycle, keep in mind this overlaid graphic that you see here on top of this chart, this is the 2014-2015 bottom. And I find it absolutely coincidental that basically these corrections have moved along sort of the same path. And 2014, 2015 saw a massive capitulation event right on the 14th of January. Now, history never repeats itself exactly. In fact, Mr. Evil Ferris, he used to always retweet back at me, "Oh, but it rhymes." You remember that too? And I fully agree. There are quite often stunning similarities between one cycle and the next. I don't know whether this is our fate. Nobody does. But to be perfectly honest with you, if I wanted to paint a scenario for the Bitcoin bottom to come in, remember what I said earlier. Bitcoin can't finish a move either up or down without some sort of absolutely horrendous face ripped or wrecked event. I've been playing this game for 5 years now on Bitcoin, watching this thing closely every single day. And I can absolutely tell you, Bitcoin does not finish a move without some sort of absolutely horrific or stupendous move. So, with that backdrop, this feels a little too polite of a quote unquote bottom. This is a perfect cliche Bitcoin bottom. So, this is basically the 1 year anniversary. Today's the 13th. Tomorrow is the 14th. So, in essence, see, here we are on the 13th. 14th was the day that this thing bottomed back in 2015. I don't know if it's going to go the same way. Nobody does. But you can see the similarities in price action. If we actually look at that chart in particular, here is that event. I put out that tweet the other day. Now, I don't know, call me crazy, but I always thought this was a gravestone doji. When you have the big red candle and then a doji right inside the bottom of this. But I looked later online and I got a whole bunch of different sort of gravestone doji references. So maybe I'm mistaken in the name of this. But this is what we call an inside bar. And you've probably seen me in the past, people that follow me on Twitter and YouTube and stuff. I would, if you ever get an inside bar, at the very least, I would say, all right, so now we have bull bear battle lines being drawn, where that is the top. And if we go back up through the top there, that's bullish. And if we go through the bottom here of this range, that's bearish. And we actually failed through the doji bar yesterday. And remember, we talked about dojis down here, right? This doji resolved bullishly. Remember, we talked about this doji up here. It resolved bearishly. So in essence, this doji, by the market moving through the doji's bottom, it actually resolved bearishly. And of course, today's follow through, boom, 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 right? And now we're actually flirting with this inside bar bull bear battle line being lost to the bears. Boo, hiss, hiss, boo. What also really bugs me about this, which is never a good sign, and this is sort of what I put out on the tweets, is hopefully everybody can see up, down, up, fail. So the fact that, we haven't closed below these lows and I don't know, maybe some crazy white knight will come screaming in before the end of this daily candle and drive the price right back up to close back above here. But when you get a clothesline fail like that, that's a very bad sign. And I also don't like the fact that all of this developed above the reload zone. That's not good. So put it all together, I gotta say this ain't looking too pretty. Inside bars failed. M top failed. Doji bar failed. And then, when, and I like to watch these on multiple time frames. I think I've talked to you guys recently. I don't really like talking to the YouTube audience about sort of lower time frame charts. But, just looking at this higher time frame chart, there's that M. And you can see if we look internally, oh boy, this doesn't look good. Big M in MACD. Oof. M in my modified Williams percentage R. And even a tight little M right here. The one sort of saving grace about this fail here is that it's on extremely light volume, which might save our asses. Like I said, one white knight who's got some deep pockets that wants to come in, they could clean this up very quickly. But as it stands right now, the bear is definitely driving the bus. I'll just make a quick reference to some levels that we're following on the site. It's not a textbook bot. And actually, one of our sort of OGs on the site, we kind of sort of said, well, Brian, this didn't set up exactly a bearish bot. There is 66%, and the rule is we don't really want the market to go beyond 66. But remember I had said earlier how that counter trend rally, and in essence, CNBC comes out with their bullish tout right in here. And I've done this with you, YouTube audience, before, and maybe people in the lounge. Are red boxes buying windows or selling windows whenever you watch Brian's videos? I couldn't believe that fucking CNBC's coming out with bullish calls in a red box. That's like sacrilegious. You're not allowed to do that. I couldn't believe it. It drives me crazy. So anyway, there was their bullish call. As we had, and I don't have it on this chart here, but the bullish bot setup, like we said, the entry was just about here. So on this candle dump, that was just your polite. And interestingly enough, they finished the candle just basically right at that bot entry level. So the market just politely told you, look, at if you're long and you were playing this double bottom, you better get out. So the bullish bot failed, and our OGs on the site, quite a few of them, just mentioned, well, you got one high, two highs, three highs. There's the bearish bot entry level. I'm taking this triple top here and I'm going short. So hats off to you guys. Great job. Move stop to break even hit. So at this point, worst case scenario, just like the bullish bot, if this thing had bottomed against all these lows, you would have been politely told to get out at your entry, but you can see no buying interest here whatsoever. The internals just look like an absolute train wreck. And what sucks about this is you could even make the argument, higher highs here. Like that. And yet, when we look at our momentum indicators, you can see lower highs. So you could actually argue that there was a bearish divergence in momentum that came in on this fail here too. Not a good sign. Then, of course, remember we talked about Williams percentage R on the higher time frames emmed out. You can see volume if we look at our if we look at our OBV indicator, this silly thing's going to move. Why are you not moving? All right, well, you can see MEM there, MEM there. I don't see any W's here at all. So volume momentum, all you Da Vinci lovers, right, the Davos, there's just no reason for volume followers to be bullish here whatsoever. So put it all together, very, very difficult to justify longs in here. And it was interesting, like through the past couple of days, we watched the market come down to move stop to trailing level. If anything, this is a great analogy. I like to teach people to use moving average closes as a good sort of move stop to trailing level. If we close above this 13 EMA, I'll get out. The aggressive traders, you can see how that worked there, right? There was the closing below that level there, so which told you the trend changed. So the trend's down until the market can close back above this 13 EMA. And you can see that this turned into like absolute chop suey over the weekend, which is really sad because, for those people, this is a 4-hour chart. So for those people that are short, there really isn't a hell of a lot going on here. It's just chop, 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 chop. And really, I suppose one could argue you just, if you were short this and you were just using market structure, you probably want to wait for some sort of structure to develop, and maybe there's where your stop is now on this setup. Or you could use, 13 EMA closes, now a close above the 13 EMA there will get you out. But regardless, the, medium term time frame players, I think they're still short, and they're looking for this 3,300 area to be tagged. I don't see any reason why that can't happen. It looks perfectly logical to me. What I do like about this, now this is kind of cool, is just like we pointed out bearish divergence on this move up, notice that as we're making new lows here, the momentum indicators are not. So we could actually argue that there is a potential bullish divergence now starting to form here. Well, thanks. Somebody said I should write a book. I've been, in actual fact, whoever it is that Buzzy, I don't know, Buzzy, if you're watching this or not now, but I actually have the title of it. It's called Frayed Shirt Sleeves and Tuna Fish Sandwiches. So if you ever come on the site and you want to know the backstory of that, really good analogy of what happens to people who have opinions versus those people who actually trade setups. And I sort of gave you the answer there. All right, so the point of the matter here is we're starting to see some potential bullish divergence forming. It's not confirmed yet. We actually have to see the W come in here and confirm, but it is encouraging. As well, you can see that we have Willie Nice and Stupid now. So, if you're a seller of Bitcoins, you missed the boat. The time to be a seller was up here. Kind of like down here when Willie gets stupid. Do you really want to be a seller down here and then have to watch this? So being a seller of Bitcoins right here, I don't think is such a good idea. And then also too, like I said, those people that are playing this AB equals CD, we're within 150 bucks of their profit objective. So they're actually getting ready to cover shorts. The sad part about it is they're probably going to dump this really violently into this level, and the public is actually going to be selling and panic dumping as we come into this level that the pros are actually getting out of their shorts and buying positions back. Go figure, right? Typical capitalism. Anyway, the point here is we can start to see the makings of a bottom. It's not here yet, but we're starting to see the makings of one. If we drill down to that hourly chart, and I'll just quickly talk about this. I don't want to go into too much detail because it's just going to fry your brains. There is the weekends trading, and this is a classic, what we call a megaphone pattern. Very dangerous. And if I ever see megaphone on the site, big word of caution to our site members, and especially new people to trading, leave this shit alone. Because it's going to chop you up and spit you out and eat you for breakfast. And I literally think they spent the entire weekend just flushing the market. Our OGers on the site like to call this the washing machine. And they kind of did this on MEX up top here. They actually took MEX to a new high here. And it's really cool. One of our longtime members, Gabby, is really big on tensor charts right now. And he was saying there was lots of anecdotal evidence on the tensor charts that this was a stopwatch up here on MEX. I'm not going to get into MEX today, but the point that I just make here on OKCoin is this is what we call a megaphone. And then quite often on the other side of the megaphone, especially if you have this really, really wide action, is this creates what's called a diamond pattern. Again, extremely difficult for new people to trading. My suggestion to new people, when you see this, you just say, hands off, I got to let this thing settle down and just consolidate a little bit and start showing me W's. Right now, this is the washing machine just trying to grind the kids and break their hearts. And I think they did repeatedly. And in fact, just before the dump here, look at this nasty ass candle. In essence, in one candle, they went and washed out all the people that went long, and they washed out all the people that went short in 1 hour period. Talk about a bunch of jerks. Now, you guys need to understand, Bitcoin has now hit the big time. There are Wall Street pros that are in here trading this shit. And it might not even be a function of OKCoin. It might be like a group of traders that are like, we've got deep pockets. We can handle this kind of move. Let's go and move the price around and see if we can flush out as many we can kids as possible. And that's exactly what I think happened over this past weekend. Keep in mind, the higher time frames are still looking for those bearish positions. There is that bearish bot setup, right? Short entry, move stop to scratch, move stop to trailing. There's the megaphone, choppy, choppy, chop. The higher time frame shorts, they're still sitting short, and they're like, well, there's nothing to do here. And the lower time frame kids all trying to pick bottoms, they just get destroyed. That's exactly what I think happened here this weekend, guys. I hate to say it, sucks. All right, so the point of the matter here is we are coming into bearish objectives. Just this AB equals CD off of this initial push took us down into this level. Remember, we talked about megaphone. You can see how we came down and tagged the bottom of the megaphone here. At this point, I don't see any reason why we can't hit these higher time frame bearish AB equals CD and bot objectives. That's this line right here. And also, too, and this is what I'm really hoping. Hope, fingers crossed. And we'll sort of leave today's video off at this. Where's that Twitter feed? Twitter, where are you, Twitter? Twitter. Over here. Hopefully, right, we don't have some insane meltdown. But if we do, don't be shocked if it happens. Ironically enough, you could actually make the argument it would probably be better for us over the long term if Bitcoin did have just an absolute fall out of bed moment, huge capitulation, public, CNBC says that's it. We're never following this stupid thing again. We're all wrecked, blah, blah, blah. But, from a trader's perspective, I'm kind of hoping, hope, that maybe we're developing something along these lines. We had a couple potential bullish harmonics tried to develop before Christmas. They fell apart. Nothing came in. So as a result, just really wasn't anything to do. I think we took one shot against a low and got stopped out. That's the way it goes. But notice that here on Stamp, there's that 61.8 harmonic, guys. They have a bit of wiggle room here. I don't know whether the harmonic boys would be like 60.2. That's not enough, Brian. It's a tough one. We have one, so Kevin's saying a 5% margin of error window. If this is acceptable, and what's 5% of 61.8, right? Yeah, so somebody in the lounge here, and keep in mind we have lots of students who really, really study up on this stuff. One of our lounge members here is saying he's working on his fishing. What? No, that's something completely different. He's saying that Scott Carney says that you can have a 5% margin of error with Gartley's. So is that within that 5% margin of error? I don't know. It is interesting how this technically we could go from 38.2 up to 88.6. This was 81.4. Again, that's tough. If we look at some of the various exchanges, this rally high was a little bit higher. But anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is let's really keep a close eye on how this 3360 area on Stamp behaves. If we can get the market to come down into here and we start seeing momentum divergences, remember we had said when we looked at those lower time frame charts that we're starting to see a potential momentum divergence starting to develop. If we can get some sort of candle body, maybe a nice doji or something off of that level, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get a big old W that could come in right off of that level? Hugs and kisses. Right. But the point here is, I see what you're saying. Tim says, well, expect this PRZ to be equally as ugly. Excellent point, sir. You also notice that there's a bit of a notch in the profile here just below. Maybe we dip all the way down to 88.6. I don't know. But if we're lucky, just if, then, maybe we can put in a nice pivot here through that leaps expiry window. I've purposely put this right on the 18th here because I do believe the whole market is moving into some sort of event there through that leaps expiry. Keep in mind that most of the business that will be done for that leaps expiry will actually be done on the Thursday. So that's the 17th. And then usually the options expiry day is a quiet day in the market. So, let's keep a real close eye on over the next week. And next week's Broiler Chicken Show should be really interesting to watch to see whether this Gartley actually came in or not. So, eyes peeled, focus. If you are a harmonic trader, you better get your plan all nice and crisp because I do believe a potential trade location is coming in. And somebody had asked PRZ, what the hell is PRZ? Well, that stands for potential reversal zone. So I do believe that there is a potential reversal zone coming in here. So, those people that are interested in Bitcoin, you better pay attention. At the same time, too, though, don't be shocked, guys, if we just fall out of bed and just lose these lows. Don't be shocked. It's just part of a trader's life. And, as I said earlier, well, actually, I'll throw another cliche at you. We used to have on the prop trading desk used to say, traders can make unlimited amounts of money. I mean, then some traders can make ridiculous amounts of money. Remember that last harmonic that I showed you? But the key here is you got to understand that traders are paid to worry. So those people that are going to be taking shots against this low, you don't know whether these lows are going to hold. And if they don't hold, probably a good idea just to hop off. But here is a great example where we could very easily in next week Broiler Chicken Show you that the market dipped into here and then just took off like a rocket. And we'll just say for the record that harmonic PRZs, especially Gartleys, if this actually does come in, then I think the floor is in on Bitcoin. They are extremely powerful formations. So eyes peeled. We have another trade location level coming up that all us higher time frame participants should be really focused in on. Of course, no guarantees from the management. We might have to fall out of bed, like we said. And really, you want to make it really easy on yourself. Look at Brian. I'm not a harmonic trader. I'm a little old lady. I like to just keep things nice and simple. Then really, the tweet that I put out here is that I still think we're very much in that sort of trying to catch a falling knife kind of scenario. You don't have to be a hero here. This is your hard-earned money. Don't just go pissing it away. If you're like, Brian, I can't handle the anxiety of buying against lows and then having to get stopped out and my heart broken because, I was wrong, well, fine. Leave that to the Twitter kids that have fun, calling tops and calling bottoms, trying to catch a falling knife. You don't have to be that person. And I even told somebody on the site, you want to make this easy. I think we're in this phase right now. Let this phase play itself out. And the easy trade is just to let this all play out and wait for the cute little W's. And then notice, we got our dojis here as well on these W's. And notice this one, right? This is the kind of stuff that actually people pay me to try and learn. Keep your emotions in check through this. Be patient. Be disciplined. Wait for this back and forth to play out. I'm never going to buy another Bitcoin again. It's all a fraud. And we want to just hunt the nice, polite little W's. That's the key to keeping as much hair on the top of your head and not going gray or white at a young age. So, as I had sort of pointed out to somebody this morning, and this was sort of the last sort of, tweet I think I did, and I even posted it in the lounge. And then there was a funny joke, right? Ironically enough, this is crypto Twitter. I will argue with anyone about anything. So try not to rely on Twitter for trading advice because it's constantly conflicted, right? And it's going to drive you crazy. Try and come into a nice, warm, welcoming environment like TRI and try and play from a position of strength. Build a plan, identify what type of risk taker you are, and just follow your plan. All right, I think I'm going to leave the video at that for today. I've been talking for about an hour and a half. I do, as I had said earlier, want to take advantage of the nice weather. So I do understand that a few people asked me to look at specific coins. There was enough to talk about here today. I think we'll just leave it at that. I had to do 2 weeks of sort of update, and we'll see everybody here again. Same bat time, same bat channel for our free sort of weekly offering here. FYI, our education program. Thanks, Tim. Our education program is starting up here this week. So, all the last minuters, you better get off your butt and get registered before the end of today or tomorrow, or you're going to miss the boat. First class for this coming term is going to be this coming Saturday, I think. I think we do class Saturday morning. For the level oneers. So, and of course, now that the team has set up a free trial on the site, I would strongly suggest you just pop on the site and just give us a test drive and just see whether, look at this was just our last daily brief where we talked lots about different trades in the marketplace and, Fed speech and Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff. And we do this on a regular basis, Monday to Friday, and people seem to really find great value in it. And it's cool because we got one of our OGers now who's actually volunteered to actually tag all these videos too. So it makes for really, really great content on the site every single day, Monday to Friday. And frankly speaking, I think that's worth the cost of the subscription alone. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to leave it at that. Have yourselves a great day, everybody. Awfully nice chatting with you. Try and play from a position of strength. Thank you very much for all your input and interaction in the lounge, guys. And great seeing you again, Tim. We should probably do your interview like we did with Dav in the not too distant future. And if you have any questions, maybe on the comments, you can post your question that you have for me, and I'll just try and answer it manually for you. All right, everybody, all the best, and bye for now. I got a little burp in there, too. All right, bye, guys.